So Natalia is doing a juice fast right now. Are you still doing that?
I am. I'm going to break tonight. Yeah.
I was thinking about you. I was like, I wonder when she's going to do it.
Yeah, I was thinking slowly tonight, yeah.
You want to tell us about it a little bit?
Sure. I mean, this is the first fast I've done in about 3 years, and before that I did a lot of fasts, and I did, at least one long fast a year. But I think the beauty of this work is that eventually you get to the point where, fasting is when you use fasting when you need to either undo a certain amount of sort of toxicity, or you want to push the envelope. You want to speed the plow and get through, let your body rest and recover even more deeply so that the organs and the blood can clean and clean and clean. And at a certain point, you don't need to do that anymore. If you're doing everything on a day-to-day basis that's in line with the highest good for your body, then you no longer need to do these intermittent fast. So I got to that point a few years ago and just didn't feel the need. And then after having a year of pregnancy and a year of a new baby, or 9 months pregnancy, 9 months of my new baby, I felt like it was time to give my organs and my system a little chance to regenerate.
Were you experiencing any kind of signs or symptoms?
No, but I knew what my body had been through, and I thought it just felt like the right thing to do. I felt like really give them a chance to breathe. I was full of baby for such a long time, and then because my baby is such an aggressive nurser, I didn't want to do it any earlier, because I didn't want to risk my milk supply at all. And the beauty of it is really if you're doing a lot of green juices on your juice fast, when you're nursing, at least if you wait until after the 4-month point, your milk will be great. It'll be fine. And as I discovered, my milk was beautiful all the way through. It's been 10 days, and there's been absolutely no negative connected with this juice fast. It's absolutely fabulous. I feel amazing. My vitality is incredible. My vibration is supercharged. On a spiritual level, this has been just a beautiful experience. And physically, I just feel really well. The milk is flowing, so that was all great. I just don't see the need to push it any further now. I think I've done the work I needed to do. But it's funny because I'm not the kind of person who finds it that easy to fast. And a lot of people think, oh well, she fasts, that's probably easy for her. She probably doesn't really, doesn't mind it. I do mind. I find it really hard to get into the groove. But what I would say to people who are thinking about fasting is that don't forget the first 2 to 3 days are the hardest. First night is the night you're committing. So that's the night where you're like, you could easily bow out and be like, ugh, really? Is this the best time? You find a million excuses, And then you might say even like, I have a meeting in a couple of days, I have a lunch meeting and dinner. Put your fast first. Let everything else flow around your fast. So if you feel the commitment could be most easily made on a particular day, like if you're feeling it that day and you just know you can go through with it and you can start, because that starting point's so critical, then even if you have an event that night or something, I would try and cancel it. If if it's not something that's critical to something, if it's sort of a social thing, then I would say bag it and go with it, because it's really a unique or a special moment when everything aligns and gives you that go ahead. That's internal. It's never going to come from the external. It's always internal, and just know you can do it. So I'd start with that, and then knowing you've got to persevere for the first 2 or 3 days, and after that it just gets easier after every day. So in fact, right now, I have no desire. I have no problem keeping going. I think it's time for me to break it, which is the reason I'm breaking it. It got easier with every day, as I always forget how good it feels when I'm in the fast, like after 3 to 4 days, and when I'm not fasting, I think, it sounds so hard and dark, and and it's the middle of December. It's cold outside, but it's funny, I haven't even needed to use my sauna the last few days. I haven't been as cold as I typically get after I have my green juice, for example, and it's really funny. I think things do really balance in ways I'm not even aware of. So that's the second thing. And then the other thing, to get through those first couple of nights, I find the vegetable broth is really, really helpful. In fact, I didn't use it after the first 2 nights, but I thought I was going to need to because it was that important to the first 2 nights working. And what I do is I make what I call a witch's brew, and I get a whole bunch of different green vegetables. Well, what I get? Parsley, kale, and then spinach, parsley, kale, a yellow onion, carrots, and garlic and ginger and leeks. I think that's it. You could put celery in too. It's really good celery. And I just cut it up, chop it all up, bring it to a boil and let it simmer. And then I just strain that. And it's so rooted. It's so hearty and earthy, and that is delicious. I mean, it just kind of sets you in for the night. If you especially people who are juicing till dinner, then that's it's the evening time that's the hardest thing to overcome in the first 2. So then you probably need to go back to it. So it might seem like a little effort to get that made. It's delicious though, and I also will use. I'll fill out with organic water, with spring water, and then I'll also put in 1 or 2, depending on how big my vat is, of the small containers. So let's say maybe 16 ounces of organic vegetable broth, Pacific organic vegetable broth, just to kind of elevate the flavor a little bit and make it really feel rich. But otherwise, I'm using just the vegetables in the water. And that's wonderful. That really, really helps. I can't underscore that enough. Let's see. And then a couple things to remember. One is that we're not fasting. I mean, you can fast for weight loss. It's a nice result, for people who need to lose weight. But think about resting the organs. People don't think enough about resting the organs when they think about fasting. Your kidneys, your liver, your spleen, your intestine, they're all constantly working as filters, trying to break all this stuff down that you're taking in every day. And if you give them a break from that, then they can catch up on all the old stuff you've already put in. You actually really literally rewind time. You turn back the clock. So it's the most anti-aging thing you can do. Now, colonics, of course, are essential because the more waste we can pull out of the body while we're fasting, the more that can come in to the channels for elimination. So that's really exciting. So you think about it, if your intestine is emptied by a colonic, and then you do a few days of no food, and then you go for a colonic, everything that's coming out is all the stuff that's being pushed through the tissues into the colon for release. So, and then your small intestine doesn't often get a chance to fully empty, because you might empty the large intestine, but the small intestine is probably still retaining a lot. It doesn't, even for people who do regular colonics, doesn't get the chance to empty the way the large intestine does. And this gives it the chance to. And remember, again, we talk about the vacuum that's created when there's space. We empty the large intestine, and then it's literally vacuuming into it all the waste it can until it can evacuate again, until it fills up again. It can't do that magnetization, that vacuuming process, if it's full. You don't have a vacuum if it's full. So emptying the colon really regularly while you're fasting, and as you go down the line, you're putting all this green juice onto the waste. You'll see the colonics or enemas will be mostly green. And the sign of a really strong intestine can come after a few days of juice fasting. If you start to move on your own, if you're moving on your own while you're juice fasting, that's a really positive sign that your bowel's in great shape. And then in terms of what to expect with your body shape, there's tons of morphing that takes place, and sometimes in the first couple of days there can be a slight expansion, and that's just because all that vegetable juice is going and hitting the old waste matter, so you're going to have this expansion. Sometimes that can go on for, depending on the more clean the system is, the more immediately it will expand when it gets a break, because it's so efficiently going to work getting rid of the waste. And when you're hitting the waste, it's expanding and the body's pushing it out. If it's your first or second or third, if you haven't fasted much historically, or you haven't cleansed much, you'll find you'll contract a lot. Like we often talk about the analogy of the sponge and the squeezing of the sponge. So you can often get squeezed, which may aesthetically please you, And it's not a bad thing for that to happen, but just know that that's because the body's, you know, it's going to purge. It's going to have a great, there's going to be great benefit to the fast, but it's not going to have the same morphology as someone who's been into cleansing a long time. So if you are expecting, you've been cleansing for a long time, and you're expecting the same physical reaction that you had in the early fast, where you just suddenly just super contract, that probably won't happen. But if you're trying to get back to your perfect weight and you've gone over a little bit, then that will happen. And bear in mind that when you definitely want to do this, don't let that stop you from doing it, because if you're doing it for weight loss reasons but you really need it for physiological reasons, don't not do it, because ultimately your skin tissue, your aging, all this stuff is occurring from within. It's the debris, the waste matter from within festering. So it's your chance to catch up on all that. If you catch up on it, you've caught up on your decay, you've caught up on your aging, and it's out the door, right? It's out the colonic tube. And also expect everything to be expunged through every elimination channel more effectively the more you're into the cleansing lifestyle. So you might really, smell funny things coming from your skin. Major orifice is the mouth, and this is something we're going to be talking about more and more. But everything that the mouth is a huge channel for elimination, and the tongue and the teeth have all these little channels. And they can push toxicity out through them, and the tongue as well is a great carrier of waste. So Ellen Arrett talks about the magic mirror being the tongue. And every morning when you're fasting, any morning actually in general, but especially when you're fasting, if you stick your tongue out, you can see what your insides look like. So how much white film is there will tell you how much white film and sticky, goopy, mucousy, sludgy stuff is inside your organs throughout. And that's really interesting to see. Highly recommend having a tongue cleaner, which is one of those tongue scrapers. And you can, and the more you cleanse an organ, the more that organ becomes able to support cleansing. So that's another reason to do that. But know that for all your orifices, that everything's going to be working its way out, which is actually powerful and wonderful, as long as you don't go and retoxify again afterward. And then if you find you're expanding a little bit rather than contracting the way you were kind of hoping to with the fast, know that when you start eating again, your body will contract further, much further than what you're seeing when you're fasting. So if you're contracting while you're fasting, it usually will go for a cleanser. The first few days they don't contract, and then they start to contract a little bit more, and then when they break the fast, they contract even more. So if you don't want to get too contracted, know that just keep an eye on that too. But know that everything rebalances perfectly after. The whole purpose is to get the organs and the pathways functioning again to their most robust state, and their best actual makeup, their biology, their ecology. So giving the intestine a break like that will create the ideal scenario for the best flora in your colon. Anyone who has an issue with microbe problems and things will benefit from fasting, because it just everything gets to renew, especially if you're doing it correctly. And when we're talking about fasting, of course, we should have said really early on, talking about juice fasting with colonics and enemas. But it's powerful work, and the morphology also occurs in large part because of gas pressure that leaves the body. And this is a real biggie, especially for people who like to drink wine or other alcohol, or take things in that are fermenting. That the gas pressure that's created goes into the bone, goes into the body at large. So when I talk about decay and getting the leg up and getting ahead of the decay, I'm talking about this gas pressure leaving the bones and the internal tissue as well, because there's noxious gas is as much a source cause of decay, aging, illness, symptoms as waste matter itself. So there's so much gas that leaves the body when you're fasting. It's amazing. So you basically, we talk about morphology, and I get excited about morphology because people don't often know what their body shape really is meant to be. They think that they're bigger than they're actually made to be because there's all this gas pressure in their bones that's morphing their bones out, hips, skull, face, shoulders, everywhere. And they think they're big boned. Really, they're just bloated boned. And so the contraction doesn't only happen from waste leaving. The contraction happens from this carbonic gas leaving the system, this noxious gas. And that's also when you start to feel so much of a spiritual high, because gas takes up a lot of space, as you know. So if you're taking up all this real estate in your body that's supposed to be empty space, it's being filled by noxious gas, and that noxious gas is released, then you're going to start to feel that spiritual connection that we always talk about, that super high vibration. It's going to just come out through the skin. The bone is going to go back to being healthy bone. Remembering too that bone is highly alkaline, so we don't want to compromise the alkalinity of the bone with the acidity of noxious gas, because of course that's osteoporosis, that's broken bones, it's all these problems down the road. And I heard this great thing the other day about, I believe that humans were designed to live many hundreds of years, and it said something to the effect of, yes, human beings are meant to live many hundreds of years, but the first 100 are the hardest. So, because we have to learn, we make all these mistakes, and most people, unfortunately, die early as a result of the miseducation, their mistakes. But one of those big mistakes and the sources of those first 100 years being difficult is gas pressure and of course this waste matter that undermines our whole being. So, sayonara to that. And then how to break it. I love the saying, any fool can fast, but it takes a wise man to break a fast. And, in that, the safest way to break a fast is with greens, avocados, and steamed vegetables. And if you're a veteran faster and you want to break with fruit, it actually becomes more advantageous to break with fruits at a certain point. It's the best way to reintroduce food to the body, but in the early fast, for someone who still has lots of waste to lose, the best thing is with vegetables.
Mm. So I actually did a 3-day fast last week when you first started, because I got very excited and it felt like that portal opened up for me. Mm-hmm. But I actually struggled with it much more than I have in the past. Every day felt really hard. And I'm actually considering doing another one this upcoming week and making it a little bit longer. Do you feel like that would be beneficial? That would add up to basically being 8 days maybe total that I fasted in the month. Do you feel like that can compare to doing straight 8 days, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's great to embark on the number of days that feels right to you at the time, and benefiting from the length of that fast, and not comparing it to what a longer fast would do for you. Mm. It is true that it's cumulative, so what you gain by the kind of situation you create in the body after several days of fasting is one that can't be replicated by stopping and starting. So the gains you make with additional days after you're into the fast more deeply are exponential, because the body's in a whole new place, able to deal on a whole different level. So much is out of the way. But at the same time, you can't get to 8 days or 10 days or 12 days or 20 days if you haven't gotten to 5 days. So I think everyone should think about what their goals are with the fast, and if if they feel emotionally up for it, and it should never. You have to be honest with yourself. It has to come from the right place. So if your goals are this inner regeneration and spiritual clarity, then you might feel like you can go easily after day 5. You'll be surprised. Anyone who's been past that sort of 3-4 day mark knows that it gets easier. And so you may want to break. I doubt you'll want to break. You may want to break, but if you don't, I would say go for a few more days and see how it feels. There's there'll be a ton to learn from the experience, and you'll only do your body good. Of course, fasting is not for everyone, and fasting should not be the first thing. Remember I said earlier, it's when we really want to push things along, we want to raise the bar. That's when we use fasting. So, people who are listening to this wondering if they should fast, if that will solve their problem, don't fast. Fasting is not going to solve your problem. It doesn't work if you have a problem. It only works if you really, first of all, there's no need to make fasting the first choice, because just the simple guidelines of awaken and release while eating are so powerful. It's only after doing that for a while that you get to a space where fasting actually becomes a deeper truth to you. Something about it feels very right, to quiet the body, to quiet the mind, to quiet the heart. And it becomes a beautiful experience. A little scary and beautiful can go hand in hand sometimes. But I would say set a little parameter so you have an idea of what you want to accomplish and achieve. If it's not right for you to get past the second day or third day, it's not the right time. I think, if it is the right time, you will. And then don't set a limit for yourself. Just set a loose parameter.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that we covered this, but how many juices would you typically consume in one day?
I would say I probably do about 8 16-ounce servings in a day, more or less. Which, for most may seem like a lot of juice. Some days I'll have a juice as early as, I usually don't need to have a juice typically before late afternoon, if even that, on a regular day. And when I'm fasting, I give myself the freedom to have juice whenever I want. But I usually still don't want one until like 11 or 12. And some days, there were many days over this period that I didn't even have it till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I definitely would still go through a lot of juices later on.
Mm-hmm.
I clocked through them, yeah. I was really happy to have the juice press around the corner, and I love their Love at First Sight, which I don't usually have when I'm not fasting, because it has the apple in it. It's phenomenal. And then I'll do a few of the Mother Earths with the volcanoes mixed into them, and then I'd like to have a coconut water at some point. And I love to do citrus when I'm fasting. That's sort of my gooey gumdrops. That's my candy land. And I like to do like a mix of grapefruit and orange. Always organic juices when you're juicing. It has to be organic. And of course I add a little stevia. Anyway, that's.
Yeah, you make it sound delicious.
Yeah, it is. And it's fun to you sit in a hot bathtub and sip your cold green juice. Heaven, And then you realize too, you lose a lot of your attachments to food. Like, I love my cheese, my chocolate, my dinners. And I thought, will I really be okay? You're totally fine. And the food will always be there on the other side. It's not going anywhere. You're going to go somewhere. You're going to have a transformation. You're going to come out on the other side of it and also be able to look at it with fresh eyes. And also it gives you some perspective too when you see the film of, the things that you eat leaving you even after you haven't eaten for days, and there's substances leaving your body which would have just been tomorrow's decay. You can really be satisfied also knowing that when it comes time to eat again, that you won't eat mindlessly. It's a great thing for people who are into this lifestyle and really get it, but want to overcome emotional eating. And it almost seems counterintuitive, because to a lot of people this can sound like an eating disorder. There's that term orthorexia, when you try to be too healthy. But if it's understood, it can be perceived at its highest form, which is the way we want it to be perceived. And it's invigorating, it's powerful, helps you understand food, yourself, your consciousness, everything from a whole new perspective. Gives you a lot of power and a lot of energy. If the waste leaves, you're left with just energy, because all that space is filled with life force.
I personally felt at my best right after I broke the fast, because I felt like I was renewed. I had brand new eyes for everything. So I really think that this is going to serve a lot of people a big plate of inspiration to actually take it on themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I hope so. It's a great journey.